Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of Rabbi Adam Kligfeld's weekly Rashi study class.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Hello to those who are here in Whiteman Conference Room. Hello to those who are joining on Zoom. Hello to anyone who's watching on Facebook Live, either on my profile or the Temple Beth Am page. And hello to anyone who might be listening to this during using the Temple Beth Am podcast series. It is nice to be back. As I wrote in the WhatsApp group, it's really nice that this is my first thing that I'm doing. This is back from sabbatical. It's much better than like a budget meeting, you know. So I'm glad they don't have budget meetings on Wednesday mornings at 8:30. Good morning. Good morning.
Those are the nearest ones.
Okay.
You gotta be in
Those who are on Zoom, we have some other people who are coming, so it's going to take a few seconds just to orient the room. I want to take this opportunity to thank Rabbi Schatz for teaching in the slot in my absence. How deep into Esther did you get? Almost done. The second time through, right?
Chapter 13.
Third chapter. Wow.
She was stunned at how slow we got.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Yeah. And I want to welcome Jen, correct? Jen, nice to meet you. Wonderful to have you part of this class. I understand you were joining for the Esther class, and lovely to have you. And my understanding is that the Esther class might continue at a different slot, right? Which is wonderful. The more regular Torah study we do in this community, the better. And I use the word Torah in a generic sense. And yeah, I think we should just kind of jump right into it. I'll have many opportunities the next days, weeks, and months to share with you and with members of the community about some of my sabbatical experiences. But this hour is for Torah study, and we do not want to engage in Bitul Torah. So, way back when, I think it was actually February 10th, 11th, 9th? 11th. February 11th, yeah. So just about 6 days before I went on sabbatical, my sabbatical began on a Tuesday, we were still dealing with Exodus, and we are in that interesting chapter 13, which, it's hard to know exactly what to do with it, whether you look at it from a biblical revelation, that Sinai perspective, or a documentary, hypothesis perspective. It's an interesting chapter inserted in the middle of the great narrative of Yetziat Mitzrayim. Like this narrative, which has became the central story of our people, is sort of interrupted a little bit for a chapter and discussing some laws about how we're going to observe it in the future. And it's in this chapter that some of the verses, and we might get to it if we get that far today. We probably won't. Some of the verses that are used in the Haggadah for the four children, right, where the Chazal, the rabbis, put in the mouths of these four prototypical children phrases out of context from the biblical story about how different children would react to the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. And we began that before Ray left. On Leonard's suggestion, I want to at least read through the first few verses. We will not do them slowly. We'll do them quickly. We got through verse 3. Let's get a little bit of momentum, and then we'll start with the Rashis on verse 3. So it's chapter 13 of Shemot. It's the beginning of the 7th aliyah of Parshat Bo. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. So we don't have to linger on that one too much, right? God spoke to Moses, saying, Kadesh li chol bechor, sanctify for me every firstborn. We often translate Kadesh as sanctify. We've discussed this many times. The root probably has to do with something being separate or distinct, right? Even the word holy has to do with something which is other, right? This is obviously on my mind from a few weeks ago when a bride and a groom are engaged in kiddushin under the chuppah. It's not a romantic concept. Not that marriage isn't romantic, but what kiddushin is not romance. It's designating someone as different than everyone else, right? In terms of your duties and obligations and your commitment to that person. So kiddushin meant that that he designated her in a way that claims a certain relationship to her that no one else in the world can claim. So set aside is probably better, even though it's not as like, beautiful a word as sanctify. Set aside every firstborn. Peter kol rechem, the one that bursts or breaks through every womb, bivnei Israel, amongst the people of Israel. Ba'adam uva'behema, whether human or animal, lihu, they belong to me. This is God's perpetual claim to have a certain claw, ownership, stake in every firstborn of our people, whether human or animal, which gives rise to at least two different rituals that you are probably aware of. One of them is Pidyon Haben, right? That when you have a firstborn male who is Peterecha, meaning not born by cesarean section, because Halacha understood that means literally has to emerge through the womb, although probably a cesarean section is actually more of a breaking up of the womb. But whatever. It's understood to be not through cesarean section, that 30 days after a male is born, that person has to be bought back from God through a Kohen for 5 silver or gold pieces. And what else? What else? How else has God claimed our firstborns ritually?
You have to do the siyum and fast of the firstborn.
Correct. Erev Pesach every year. Even a firstborn who has gone through a pidyon haben is still owned on some level by God and owes a day of abstinence from food to commemorate what almost happened on that night years before, unless your rabbi study a tractate of Mishnah, in which case you can chow down. The most unsatisfying feast of the year, because you have a feast. Normally after a siyum, you have a big feast, and I think we serve like macaroons and some egg matzah or something like that, because the whole kitchen is clean. Okay, so that's verse 2. Any burning questions on 1 or 2 before we get into 3? Yes. Carl, take the microphone. Just take the microphones off the stands because it's much easier to turn around that way.
How do we know it's males only from the verb? The bachor means male, first child. Or?
Okay, so there are 2 answers to that question. One is that the narrative, because it's in response to the vulnerability of the night of Exodus, and on that night it was only firstborn males who were smitten, right? So there's a parallel story to a parallelism between who would have been at risk and was saved, and therefore who owes, and Halakha determined it that way. I wouldn't say there's anything about the gender of this verse that obligates it. The story is understood that way, and the rabbis understood that should apply only. And starting in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, as egalitarianism came into Judaism, and we discussed and are still debating, are there any limits to a fully egalitarian application of halakha? By the way, the answer is yes. I don't think anyone here is asking that women undergo some kind of a brit milah, right? There are places where our rational sense says we don't need to do that in order to claim that we're egalitarian, right? I think I've shared this with you at some point in my community in Monroe. The only thing we did ritually and liturgically in our community that was not fully egalitarian was regularly in shul, duchening. We duchen in our shul on Yantif. I miss duchening. I'd like to bring it back, but I like my job too. No one can hear you. No, give him a mic. I'm giving you my mic.
We have an extremely unegalitarian rite that pretty much is performed every Shabbat morning, and that's Agba and Glila.
Yeah.
True. I went to a Shiva minyan once, and they asked me to do the Glila, and I said, "Well, I go to an egalitarian minyan, so I don't know how to do that."
Right. So that one is often the case, but it's not principally the case, right? Yeah. Yes. I'm mid-sentence, but go ahead. So take a microphone. I will, but I was interrupted by Mr. Hagla over here.
But in the Parsha, it was just the firstborn males, the Egyptian firstborn males that were smitten.
Correct.
So we're following on from that.
Correct. So duchening means it's the Yiddish word. Duchan means like a table or a step. It's the thing upon which the Kohanim would step up to bless the community. In the land of Israel, particularly in Jerusalem, they duchen how often? Every day, right? Not every place in Israel, but most places in Israel and many places in Yerushalayim. In most Chutz La'aretz communities, the duchening only takes place on Yantif. We duchened in our community in Monroe. I thought it was a beautiful end to Yantif services. We did it, by the way, not just on Yamim Norim, we did it on all Yantif, Pesach, Sukkot, and Shavuot. But we didn't call up Bat Kohens to duchen. And the conceptual problem with this is that if a Bat Kohen is a Kohen and should duchen, then why shouldn't a Bat Kohen be? And a Bat Kohen, and then everyone's a Kohen. Because someone has it somewhere in your line. So we got blocked, got stymied by that question. It's one of the reasons why I've never instituted here, because I can't imagine, you can tell me if I'm wrong, reinstituting duchening in this community and saying it's only open to males. I think that would probably be fought. It could be wrong. And I've never figured out how to square the circle of honoring the concept of what duchening is, which is something that was applied to male Kohanim and it was only passed down through males, and yet still have it be somewhat egalitarian, right? Someone has claimed you should allow Kohen and Bat Kohen and then just somewhat artificially end it there and not Bat Kohen. Some have argued, and they do this in some communities, where it's become like elective duchening, right? That if you're feeling particularly priestly that day, right? Particularly because we track 100% Kohanic lineage. If you're feeling particularly priestly today, and you want to bless the community, right? When I bless my children, I'm not pretending to be a Kohen. It got transferred from Kohen to parent. I've seen some communities do that. It's actually lovely. I don't know if that's what we would do here. But the reason I bring it up here is that some people have asked the question about, should firstborn females self-obligate to fast Erev Pesach and therefore self-obligate to a siyum in order to break that? And should there be some ritual for Pidyon Habat, right? So these verses are still very much alive in our conversations, and we still haven't resolved everything because these things are complicated, and that's even before we deal with gender fluidity issues that have come up in the last 5 to 10 years. Scott wrote, Sephardim do Birkat Kohanim every day. Thank you, Scott. I don't think I knew that. Wow. Standard Sephardi practice is that they do duchening every day. Okay. All right, that was a long answer to Carl's question. Your hand's not up, Larry? Usually it is.
So first of all, I know that Matthew's comment was made in jest, but it's not true. We have had women who do Hagbah. We do. Rabbi Birnbaum's daughter did it. No. And Galila for sure. And I'm very makpid about calling up Golelet or Golel. And Mike helps me on that. We do the same thing in the library minion. And you should know that the Talmud says, and I used to remember exactly where it is, I can find it, the highest honor to be given is Galila. So that is Golel is the highest honor. I know it's a longer conversation you don't want to have right now, but since it's pretty clear that you've decided, whether you've ruled, that duchenin, amongst other things women can and should do, is mutar, but not chiyuv, it's not chayav, it's not required, and it's not a sur, it's not forbidden. It might be worthwhile for us as a congregation to have a study about it. You might be surprised by what the reaction is in terms of the number of people who would like to have that tradition here at Beth Am.
I'm certainly open to it, Lara. I think it was my second year here. I don't think it was my first. Members of the library minion requested that we explore it because apparently it had been tried before.
That's what I was going to mention, because Larry and Diane
what's that?
here yet.
And I did a couple of study sessions, I think after services in library minion, and then there was one Sukkot where library minion, not upstairs, duchened once. And I don't even remember which position they followed, because I laid out the different possibilities, and I said very clearly, I'm not poskening here as Mar Da'atra. I'm not telling you what must be done, because it's still fraught in question marks, and this was an experiment, so I don't even know what was done. But what I know is that, I knew, it's not that it was withheld from me, I just don't remember. And apparently after the fact, there was not a clamoring for more of it. But that's a long time ago, and I would love to bring it back. So I'm open to that Talk to me after Simchas Torah. Tova.
Pass this on only if the Levim wash
Oh,
your
of
hands.
course. Of course. Yeah.
My recollection was that we did duchen once, but then the issue of Bat Kohen was raised, and the solution was we stopped duchening.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty much what happened.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that, yes, the library minion did it once. Those individuals who were most excited about let's try this weren't in the kahal that day. It was a weekday yontif. And it kind of just fell flat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you grew up in a duchening community, deep inside your Jewish unconscious is the experience of being wrapped in your father or mostly your father's talis, because you block your eyes. You're not watching the Kohanim because it doesn't matter who they are. And that's an extraordinarily deeply embedded tactile Jewish experience for those who grew up with it. Yeah. Nora.
I suspect I grew up in a duchening community, was never there when it happened, but I have experienced as an adult being blessed by Kohanim from the Bima numerous times, and it doesn't do much for me. The custom I learned was that one shouldn't look at it while it's happening. So some people just sort of pull their tallis over their head, others turn around, some do both. What's that?
That's supposed to turn.
Well, whatever it's supposed to be, you're not done. It hasn't been an exciting thing for me, but I've accepted the blessing. I definitely enjoy saying Amen instead of Kain Hiratzon because it's relatively seldom that I hear it that way. Although, of course, when I bless my children, it always gets an Amen.
Your children say Amen when you bless your children?
What's that?
Who says Amen when you bless your children? You do, Rachel.
Everybody around, usually.
Nice. Okay.
If Stevie's over on a Friday night, or if he's not, when I see him on Shabbos, I generally bless him. If I'm by Andy, I'll bless him. And then
Rachel says Amen to each of them.
Rachel says Amen, and Stevie says Amen.
I don't know. It's not the ritual that I'm used to, that at Birkat Kohanim that someone is responding Amen. Usually Kain Yiratzon, if anything. Yeah.
And my understanding is that the default when you hear the priestly blessing is to say Amen. The exception is when it's part of a repetition of a Shemot Esrei.
Yeah.
And that's when we say Kain Yiratzon, because anyways.
Yeah.
So I find some meaning in it, but I don't feel the need to find a synagogue where it's done regularly. And when we did it, there were a few people who said it was really important to experience it. In one case in particular, Michael Birnbaum said he wants his children to have that experience, and he doesn't want to have to take them someplace else just to do that.
Yeah. We're moving right along here on our verses. We're really, since April, I've been mostly based in Northeast Connecticut, and I was volunteering doing chaplaincy at a hospital in Springfield, Massachusetts. And literally on the road from where I was staying to the hospital, there were not one but two shuls with daily minyanim that I've been davening at. So there's a modern Orthodox shul that is 7 a.m. minyan, a modern Orthodox shul in a building which, when I was in USY, was the conservative shul, but there've been a lot of contractions and mergers. So I actually recognize the sanctuary pre-Mechitza from me being in USY in the 1980s. And then there's a Lubavitch day school through like 8th grade in Longmeadow. They've had a strong presence there for a long time. They have a 7:30 minyan. So depending on what time I had to be at the hospital, I would go back and forth between the minyanim. And they eventually asked me to lead in the Chabad davening. As you know, I take pride in my davening. I'm pretty good at it. The Chabad is a different nusach. It's nusach ha'ari. It's the nusach of davening that's ascribed to the Ari, Rabbi Luria of Tzfat. Some of you have probably been to a shul. Probably few of you have been in his freezing cold mikvah there. And why am I saying this? Oh, because in Chabad, on Birkat Kohanim, in the repetition of Amidah, they don't say Kain Yiratzon, they say Amen. And it's just interesting because, like, as you're right, normally I'm not used to hearing an amen to that. So if we do end up bringing back duchening, there'll be some birkat kohanim to which the response is an amen. Rebecca, then Sue, your hand was up also.
We used to go to UCLA Hillel for high holiday services. And Theodore Bickel, who had played Tevye and has this booming voice, he was among the Kohanim who would duchen. I mean, for years, I would look forward to that. Very powerful because you could recognize his voice among all the Kohanim.
That's amazing. Wow.
Okay, this is very quick. Rebecca can fix it if I'm wrong. Duchanim in Hebrew are booths, like, right? They're booths like you're going to a street fair and there are booths and those are duchanim.
It's not a platform?
It's not a platform. It's like
It's both?
like
Podium.
it's a podium. But
dais or something?
in the vernacular, you use it like, oh, there's over there.
Got it.
Duchanim and a shuk.
Okay, so that's verses 1 and 2. Let's go to verse 3. And this is the verse which we read in February, and you've been thinking about nonstop, and now we're going to do the Rashis on it. Vayomer Moshe el ha'am, Moses then said to the people, Zachor et hayom hazeh, remember this day, Asher yitzatem mimitzrayim, the day on which, there's no, the Asher is kind of on which you left from Egypt, Mi Beit Avadim, from the house of literally slaves. It's often translated as the house of bondage, but it's not Mi Beit Avdut. It's not the noun of slave of bondage. It's the house of slaves. I'm interested if anybody has an interesting translation of that. I'd be interested to hear. Ki, because for Bechozek Yad, with strength of hand, Hotzi Adonai Etchem, God brought you out, Mizeh, literally from this, but meaning from here. Velo ye'achel chametz, and a very interesting little thing at the end. Oh, by the way, on that day that you're remembering this, chametz should not be eaten. And this is like a little hint at the fact that in the biblical layers, there's not 100% clarity on the relationship between Chag HaAviv, Chag HaPesach, Chag Yitziat Mitzrayim. I know it's not actually referred to that way, but was it a one-day obligation? How did it get conflated with a 7-day obligation? On this verse, it seems to say, remember the day on which you left, and on that day you shall not eat chametz. No indication in this verse that it's the first of 7 days in which chametz should not be eaten. Okay. Renee, yes. Hi, Renee.
Morning. Welcome back.
Morning.
Everett Fox says House of Serfs.
Of serfs. Interesting. Okay. So he's being very serfs, S-E-R-F.
Yeah.
Like,
S. S-E-R-F-S.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, although indentured servitude. I wonder if serf and servitude are related etymologically. I don't know. Okay. Larry, did you find interesting?
Altar is very literal. And Moses said to the people, remember this day on which you went out of Egypt. Remember this day on which you went out of Egypt from the house of slaves, which is your translation. For by strength of hand, the Lord brought you out from here, and unleavened stuff, literally stuff,
really
shall not be eaten. Yeah, I thought that.
Interesting.
Unleavened stuff.
Okay.
Aryeh Kaplan is not literal in the least. Moses said to the people, remember this day as the time you left Egypt, the place of slavery. When God brought you out of here with a show of force, and he even has a note to say, show of force is literally a strong hand, but he doesn't want to put strong hand.
I wonder why. He also kind of gets rid of the key when God brought you out of Mi Beit Avadim B'chozek Yad, whereas in a Truppistic way, it's the day on which God brought you out of the land of Egypt, sort of comma, Ki B'chozek Yad, because it was with the strength of hand, right? Ki B'chozek Yad. Yes, Rebecca?
I didn't read the English phrase, sorry. You're right. No leaven may be eaten.
Okay. Rebecca, then Steve, and then we're going to look at the Unkelus.
Not with regard to Beit Avadim, but it's interesting that the cause and the consequences, we will not eat chametz because we were let out with a strong hand rather than in a rush, or the other reasoning here. I don't really see the cause and effect making sense, but that's what's being emphasized.
Good. So the question is, does the key go forward to V'lo yechel chametz, or does the key go backward to why you need to remember it? There's a semi-pause between Beit Avadim and the key and the trup. There's a fuller pause after Hotzi Adonai Elchem Mizeh. It's the fulcrum, the musical fulcrum of this verse is like 90% of the way through. So you lane it. Vayomer Moshe El Ha'am Zachor et Yom Hazeh Sheyetzatem Mitzrayim Beit Avadim Ki Bechozek Yad Hotzi Adonai Elchem Mizeh. Pause. And by the way, on that day you shouldn't eat chametz. So it's unclear if the key is going in one direction or the other. Diego, who's on Zoom, hi Diego, wants us to know that according to Harav Chat Gefet, Chat GPT, the firstborn applies to converts as well. That's interesting. I don't remember thinking about that, let alone knowing the answer to that. That if you convert to Judaism, but you were a firstborn male to your non-Jewish mother, that you would you'd be obligated for Sim B'Charot. That's interesting if that's true. Thank you, Scott. What did I say? Scott, Diego. That was Diego.
Hello, welcome back.
Because Scott also said above, thank you, Diego. I recall it was underwhelming when TBA tried it. He's going back to the Duchening, but I recommend everyone take the opportunity to experience it in the Sephardic shul. It's a powerful experience any day, but it's the most powerful day on any Shabbat when there are several Kohanim. And then Diego, he's Johnny on the spot here with his research. Etymologically, English serf, S-E-R-F, comes from Old French serf, which comes from Latin servus, which means slave. Go figure. So it's related. Yes, Leonard.
On that same note, servant and serf both have the same root ultimately.
Right, yeah. I took your napkin, I'm sorry. Okay. I want to look at the Unkelus here, partly because Unkelus made one translation choice that we've already discussed, and it's going to set up the super commentary on Rashi that we're going to read, not just necessarily the Rashi, but the questions on why Rashi said what Rashi said. Okay. Most of you can pull up Unkelus in your Chumash. Va'amar Moshe la'ama. Thank you. Moses said to the people, Havo dekirin. Okay, even if you don't know Aramaic grammar, the way Unkelus is rendering it, it's very different form than Zachor, right? Because Zachor, I can pause there. What part of speech do we think Zachor is? Command, right? Like remember, exclamation point, okay? And Unkelus is translating it as something like Hayu Zochrim. They were or they are remembering. So Unkelus is trying to figure out what is the force of this phrase, and we discuss this almost every time. It's very hard in modern 21st century English to try to understand not only what is denoted by these words, but how even tense and verb structure were understood back then. Those are not the same things, right? Even if we translated it well, but it doesn't mean we know what they were experiencing when hearing those words. But he's doing something to suggest that Zachor, as it's written, is not necessarily a command. Yat Yom Hadain, this day, Di Nefaktun Mi Mitzrayim, that God brought you out of Egypt, Mi Beit Avduta, right? He agrees with altar, right? From the house of, what did altar say? Oh, so he does not agree with altar. He agrees with the English translations from the house of bondage. He doesn't say, or they agree with him. Yeah, it was probably that, right? But he does not render avadim as the Aramaic plural of avadaya, of service, of slaves. He turns it into bondage. Okay. With all that in mind, let's read the Rashi since we've been waiting a long time. Elon, we had not heard from you today. Please, let's give Elon a microphone.
זכור את היום הזה, לימד שמזכירין יציאת מצרים בכל יום. Remember this day. This teaches us that we should remember the Exodus from Mitzrayim every day.
Okay. Aside from that being a nice idea, what is your guess? And if you don't have one, you're in good company because the super commentaries and Rashi disagree as to how Rashi is pulling this out. Remember, Rashi is not just giving a sermon. He's responding to some sensitivity, some delicacy, some oddity in the verse. What is it about this phrase, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat et Yom Hazeh, remember this day, such that Rashi says, oh, what this teaches us is that we're supposed to remember the Exodus of Egypt every day. He doesn't tell us why. He assumes that we'll do the work inside. And it might help to figure out what his question is, to which this is the answer. Any thoughts? And it's not obvious at all. Let's go, Larry. Let's go. I'm having a brain cramp. Oh my God, that's so embarrassing. Rick, I know that I know who you are. I just had a total brain cramp.
I'm clearly wrong because to me it's obvious. He's reading the entire pasuk, and the ending says that you don't eat bread. You don't eat. You don't eat chametz.
Leaven stuff.
So he's leaven stuff. So he's saying, don't be confused to think this is only on Pesach. It's every day that you have to remember. I'm also.
Wait, how is that? How does that make sense? How does that come out of the verse?
Well, if I read the verse just as it was, Moses said, "Remember this day, day, on which you come out from the blah blah blah. No leavened bread shall be eaten." I'm thinking, when is no leavened bread eaten? Only on those 7 days. So he must be meaning, remember, you're coming out on those 7 days.
Right. So then, why would Rashi then say it means that you're supposed to remember it every day?
Because he's saying you would be mistaken by the verse. The verse would teach you the wrong thing. So he's saying the verse. The
lest
verse
you think.
Lest you think. So the verse has 2 different phrases separated by the etnachta, and the one about not eating leavened bread has to do with not eating leavened bread. But the first part is more general.
So it's an interesting shita because rabbinic discourse is filled with lest you think it means this, it means that. But there's still got to be a reason why Rashi would think the verse means that when it looks like it means this. There's got to be some hook, right? Stevie and then Rick, or Rick and Stevie. Rick, is that your name?
Just a whimsical trope thing. Zachor, you go up twice. Zachor, it's a 2-part thing. So the first definition is that Yom, and the second definition must be something else. So it's every day.
Okay, good. Don't know if Rashi means that, but I like it on its own. Stevie and then Barry.
I mean, I think the key phrase is et hayom hazeh, which Rashi is reading as the subject of what you're supposed to remember. And Ibn Ezra, for example, reads it as qualifying, when you remember.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, that would be the distinction. You don't need to look at the end of the pasuk to have like some indication of this day, and then you can interpret that as you will, as to being what you're remembering or when you're remembering.
Okay, Barry, and then Elon's hand. Is your just scratching your ear. Let's give this to Barry.
The hazeh seems to be unnecessary.
What is the necessary?
Not necessary.
Hazeh, got it. Okay.
Zachor et Yom Hayom Asher. It's this day on which all this will happen. By the way, this day, every day. That's what Rashi's focused on. Why this unnecessary use of hazeh?
Okay, I agree with you that hazeh is not entirely required in the verse to make sense. It's unclear how hazeh would push the meaning to mean remember this day every day. Like, I like it. I don't know how he pulls it out of it. most people, yes, Rebecca, and then Sue, and then we'll look at a super commentary.
One thought is that what he's trying to say, and I'm not sure I really see it, but what he's trying to say is that what you have to remember is not only this specific Yetziat Mitzrayim, but that every day you go through similar processes of coming out of bondage, and that should always be on your mind, maybe.
I agree that's what he's saying. The question is why he's saying that based on the verse.
No, that it's not just this event, meaning in the verse it says, remember this day that you came out, which is exactly Yudalet or B'Nisan. But maybe what he's saying is that you remember the whole process in general of coming out of bondage in general daily.
Because every day there's some experience of it.
I don't know.
Sue?
Well, this is anyway. We have Zachor Yetziat Mitzrayim in Tefillot every day, don't we?
There's Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim. There's that phrase in different grammatical structures.
Well, so the Tefillot were happening already when Rashi was commenting, and I wonder if he's imposing backwards to explain why we in Tefillah every day talk about Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim, and maybe he's pushing it backwards to this is the source of that.
Could be. It could be doing that consciously or unconsciously. We end up being in an interesting place where we're restarting this class on the rather few commentaries of Rashi that I'm aware of where it's really not 100% agreed upon how he is extracting it from the verse. Right? It's not clear. Okay, I want to share with you the super commentary. 1 second, Rosemary. Let's see if I still remember how to do this. Okay, so of the several super commentaries on Rashi, I chose the Mizrahi. I think I told you there's a set of books called Mefarshe Rashi. Basically, we've looked at them before. Commentaries trying to do Rashi, what Rashi does to the text. The one we've looked at most often is the Gur Aryeh, which is the commentary of the Maharal of Prague on Rashi. The Mizrahi is another one, and sometimes that actually, the set is called the Mizrahi, even though he's not the only one who appears. Okay. And he says something interesting. So he quotes he quotes Rashi. So here, the words in bold are not the verse, it's the words of Rashi, because he's commenting on Rashi. Zachor et hayom hazel limeid shemazkirin yetziat Mitzrayim b'chol yom. It teaches us that you're supposed to remember Egypt every day. Nireli, it seems to me, shehotzizeh, that he got this, that he brought this out, mimilat zachor. Now the Mizrahi is not dotted with vowels, but the vowels are the key here. He gets it from the word zachor. Zachor, if you look at the verb itself, what is the vowel underneath the zayin? A kamatz. Another commentary says, what would the vowel have to be if it really was a tzivui, a command? Shva, right? The verb is lichtov, to write. How do you tell someone to write something? Ktov or ktav. You don't say katov, right? So Zachor, even though we think of it as commanded because Zachor Yom Shabbat Lekodsho, we understand this be to observe the day of Shabbat in its sanctity. It really is probably understood using English grammar as a gerund, as a nondescript use of the root remembering, right? In fact, in this volume that I have, how it describes what Zachor with a kamatz means in modern Hebrew grammatical terms. Klalei Lashon HaKodesh, the norms of the Holy Tongue. Makor HaPoel. It's so hard to translate these phrases. The source of the verb, it's not the infinitive because it's not liskor. It's the chorused sense. It's almost like you're just putting out the letters of the root without putting it into a verb. Like the concept of remembering. Surat HaPoel, it's very small. Surat HaYesod Shel HaPoel, the form of the yesod, of the foundation of the verb. Pe'ula lelo tziyun zman. It's the referencing of the activity without indicating zman, time. Guf, person, first, second, third. Min, male or female. O mispar, singular, plural. It's just remembering. One, yeah, or just the remembering happens. 1 second, Rick, I see you. So I got eyes in the back of my head. So if you plug that into what the Mizrahi is saying, it appears to me that Rashi pulled out this idea from the fact that Zachor is written as Zachor, not Zachor. Shehu lashon hoveh. Now this is also interesting. Mizrahi calls this the language of the present tense. He doesn't mean present tense like ani zocher. He means a present and continuing action of just remembering. Sheperusho tiyeh zocher zet tamid, whose interpretation means you should be remembering it now on the day that God told Moses to tell the people this, tamid, always. Okay, so it's probably the case, we don't know for sure, that Rashi is being sensitive to the fact that this was not written as zichor, in which case it's a future command, but zachor. And if we read that back in bulky English, Moses said to the people, remembering, guys and gals, like you're in it right now. May this zichira always be present with you, because it's written not as a command that you do it, but as a concept that you should be immersed in. Rick, thank you for waiting.
Just wanted to support what you were saying. The Silverman footnote, the Silverman Rashi. Anyway,
yes,
this is derived from the use of zachor, which is an infinitive in form, and as such implies action without reference to any particular time.
Right, a sort of infinitive. Yeah,
there shall be a remembering the day, and then he puts CF. Is that also referencing?
Yeah, cross reference. Yeah,
Rashi at the end of his comment on 28, which is zachor from the Ten Commandments. Remember Shabbat. So it's the same form.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we derive a specific obligation, one of the 613 mitzvot, from Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, as if that verse were written in Sivui, in command, even though grammatically it isn't. Or Rashi's wrong and he's being overly sensitive, and the vowels we don't know about anyway because they're all ex post facto guesswork, and that maybe back then Zachor and Zachor were the same. We don't know. Leonard, a lot of hands. So go ahead, Leonard. You were waiting. I'm sorry, Rosemary.
Zachor, the imperative, doesn't have the vav. This word has a vav, so therefore it has to be zachor and not zachor.
The presence of a vav or the absence of a vav in a full cholom is interchangeable, meaning it doesn't change the form.
Not according to this.
What's the this? Okay, and what does it say?
It says that for both of these words they call makor.
Okay.
Like the infinitive.
Yeah.
So you have two choices for that. Zachor, which is our word here, and zachor. But they're not spelt the same. One has a vav. The first one has a vav and the second one doesn't.
But the primary difference is the vowel under the zayin, not the, unless it's making the claim that zachor as command is a kamatz katan under the chaf.
It's a shva.
Yeah. No, but under the chaf. Cholom or kamat. Yeah. So I think that they decided to print it that way to make it look different, but there's no one who makes any kind of word form or grammatical distinction between vav and vav. Cholom chaser, cholom maleh. The rabbis sometimes drash it up, right? They read that it's chaser, and therefore it's giving us some kind of a hint that something is amiss. But it shouldn't be that in terms of the laws of grammar there should be any difference. It may just be they chose to print it that way to make a greater distinction between the two forms. But is it true that in that one the imperative for zachor is a shva?
It's a shva.
Yeah,
Yes.
that to me is the structural difference in the verbs. Yeah. All right, Rosemary was waiting, so let's get to Rosemary, and then we'll make our way around Rebecca, and then Norm, and then Larry.
My knowledge is not enough to look at grammatically, but I think I can see the vision. Moses is standing in front of the people, and he say, "Remember this day," and relates it to the leaven and bread. Whereas Rashi, years, centuries after, he has experienced, he has seen what is happening. He remembers people remember this day, because if he says every day you remember and don't eat leaven, nobody will listen.
Yeah.
So for him, it's just remember every day.
Yeah. When you were speaking, I was thinking about that beautiful and powerful scene towards the end of Saving Private Ryan, when the Tom Hanks character is dying from his wounds, and we don't know this the first time we're seeing the movie. The what's his name? What's the other actor? Good Will Hunting. Matt Damon. The Matt Damon character is like hovering over him, and everyone's seen the movie, I assume. Spoiler alert. Haven't seen the movie, Elon?
You can spoil it.
What kind of person are you? Haven't seen Saving Private Ryan? All these years, I've thought highly of you. And anyone, what's the last words that Tom Hanks says in character? And you can only barely hear him because he's dying, so he whispers it. He says, "Earn this." He pulls Matt Damon and says, "Earn this," right? And that's the moment where Matt Damon's face transforms into the face of the older man from the beginning of the movie who's visiting the cemetery in Normandy, right? And so "earn this" is a tzivui. But the way the movie plays itself out, it's almost as if the character understood that to mean you're going to be earning this, the fact that you're alive and I'm not, every day of your life, right? It's not a command like, on a particular day, Private Ryan, earn this. It's earning this is your lifetime, right? So it's almost as if Rashi is understanding that. Like Moses says to people, remembering, look around, remembering. That's what I want you to be pulling out of this experience. Rebecca, Norm, go ahead. We'll get to you, Toba.
Even though the word is zachor, remember this day, which could be a very just personal action, remembering it, you remember it in your mind and it's a personal act. It's interesting that the Rashi Shemaz Kirin, which also sounds like remember this every day, gets translated as mention this every day in the English. And the rabbis end up putting into the daily prayers, to either ensure that people do remember it by mentioning it, or that collectively we remember it by mentioning it. But it's interesting that instead of just remember, it says mention it. And I heard a couple other English translations.
Once again, it's interesting to make that comment in English, because in English, we think of them as different verbs, remember and mention. In Hebrew, what we translate as mention is just the he feel of zachor, right? Lahazkir is just taking the root of remembering and turning it into a causative to make something remembered, which is, I guess, what we're doing when we're mentioning it, right? So it's like, it feels clunkier and bigger to talk about that in English than for Rashi to just do it all be'ivrit, right? So zachor, mazkir, like how does the remembering happen? By mazkiring it, but it's the same root. And sometimes when we come to English words that are entirely different English roots to convey words which in biblical and modern Hebrew are really the same idea, the gap feels bigger in English than it might in Hebrew. Yeah. Norm.
In just a few parshas, we will get to the Aser Debrayos, as Uncle would say, the Ten Commandments, and we will read Zachor es HaShavas L'Kadsho, and we understand Zachor, and I think it was well understood by Rashi's time. We understand Zachor in that context to mean that we remember it all the time. We plan and prepare and remember Shabbos, not only on Shabbos, but on the other days also. And in the same way, Zachor here means we remember Yetzias Mitzrayim not only on Pesach, but all year long.
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't catch this until now. Everett Fox has a little footnote on the word remember. He translates it into the English remember, which sounds like command. But his footnote is here, and again at 28, the verse from that was referenced before from Revelation, the Hebrew verbal form is an emphatic one. It's an interesting comment because he doesn't say the Hebrew form is a imperative. He says this to him. This suggests emphasizing. It's slightly different than Rashi's deriving from it. You have to remember it every day, but he's noticing that this is not the same verb form as a single remember with an exclamation point. Dan.
So going back to what you were saying about Hebrew. So Hebrew, because of its root structure, is so conceptually different from almost any other language except Middle Eastern languages that it has an essence to it that's really hard to even describe with English because there's this thing about Hebrew roots.
Yeah. And linkages between concepts that are more intimate than in our, where many more words in English than in Hebrew, and certainly many more root words, particularly because our language, think of how many words in English come from Greek versus Latin versus other sources, Romance languages, whereas Hebrew, it's one, for the most part, one core source that had to produce the same number of ideas. Like I wouldn't want to think that like a modern Hebrew speaker or an ancient Hebrew speaker had fewer brain pulses of ideas than we do. It's just they had the same human experiences, just fewer words to describe them, or fewer concepts to
But
describe
they
them.
also mentally link things that we wouldn't necessarily link.
Absolutely. Yeah. Larry.
Probably misunderstood you. First of all, thank you for that commentary about Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
I think it's really appropriate, especially given the character and the character that Tom Hanks plays there was a very modest school teacher.
Yeah.
And not a war hero per se.
Yeah.
And I think what you said about what he meant about earn it is contained here. I'm going to digress for 1 second. There's a commentator I didn't know, Siftei Chachamim.
One of the 4 classic super commentaries on Rashi is Siftei Chachamim.
Rabbi Shabbatai Bass.
Mm-hmm. So like 16th century?
1648,
17th century.
1641 to 1718.
Okay.
And he came after Elijah Mizrahi on that. He has a long...
And after the Maharal of Prague also.
Right. He also... Thank you. Anyways, I read the English in Sefaria just now.
The English of Siftei Chachamim?
Yes.
Okay, should I put worthy to pull up?
It's great. I mean, the one word that he uses that, at least in the English translation, I haven't gone through the Hebrew, I'm sorry, is continuous. This Zachor, Maskirin, this should be continuous, not just every day, not just that you, Maskir as a secretary, right? Not just that you record it every day, but you should be continuously feeling it. And now I go back to your commentary about Saving Private Ryan. Your life should be an earning of what's happened here.
Since you mentioned it, let me pull it up. I will do it quickly. 1 second, Barry. Okay, so it should be on the screen now. Okay, so this is Siftei Chachamim. I haven't prepared this, so I'm going to go through it as easily as I can. Again, he quotes Rashi, Limeid shemaskirin yitzat Mitzrayim b'chol yom. Great. Midechtiv Zachor b'kamatz. From the fact that Zachor was written with a kamatz, an under the Zion, and not a shva. So what we said before, mashma means Zachor tamid, always, perpetually. What was the word used? Or continuously remembering. Kamosha Peresh Rashi B'Parshat Yitro, the same thing that Rashi is going to say when it comes to the obligation of Shabbat, Apasuk Zachor Yom Shabbat. Yeah, it goes deeper into it, but that's the basic concept. Thank you. Barry. And then.
So if we
Tova.
have this continuing gerund, emphatic, always, what's the tacking on of v'lo yachel hametz?
Yeah.
Are we constantly going to be lo yachel hametz? How is this tacked on?
It's a good question, Barry, right? And someone was mentioning that before. Like, where do we place that phrase? First of all, it seems like an appendage anyway, right? Even before the conversation we just had, that little appendage of lo yachel hametz, you're wondering how it got there. And if we are indeed reading Moshe as not giving a divine command, but kind of like a personal leader exhortation to the people about how this day has to be in your consciousness all the time, then even more so, what does v'lo yachel hametz do? Good question. And Rashi's totally quiet on it. I didn't explore to see if other people say anything about it, but the question, it's even more bolated, more stands out what those three words possibly are doing, given this understanding of the verse. Great. Tova.
We've been sort of skirting around this in various ways, but it just also strikes me that the very first part of the verse of this section, they're talking about a specific group, the firstborn from the womb, and now he turns to talking about Kol Ha'am, and then immediately followed by Zachor, which it's like he's defining the nature of his people. We are going to be the remembering people, the people imbued with this essence.
Nice. Okay, Rebecca.
This is probably not related at all, but I keep
We'll
thinking.
find a way to relate it.
I keep thinking about the way the word zachar, which shows up just a few lines earlier, and the shoresh of lisko are the exact same shoresh. Phone says that there's no connection, but somehow I'm wondering if the whole
Zachar as male.
Yeah,
regarding
your goal of the zachar in the world is to remember or be a memory.
So I wonder if Leonard might help us. I wonder if is Zocher and Zachar are one of those three-letter Hebrew roots that are actually not related to each other. Stevie has a thought, and then it's Jennifer, right?
I've been taught that they both derive from I don't know what language but from a root that referred to pointing, and
like that.
Yes, and that led to both the concept of memory and to the concept of masculinity.
Interesting. Jen, you gonna say something? Let's give Jen the microphone 1 second. Leonard, can you pass the microphone? Oh, okay.
Hey, just wait. Come up with the interesting. I was reading a commentary that had drawn attention to. It could have said the day on which, where you have Zechor Hayom Hazeh. It could have been. Why didn't they write it as remember the day on which you were? Why this day? Meaning that you could interpret it. Remember today. Remember now. And then it's just, and then the other thing is, it's interesting, the mapach with the pashta. So really drawing emphasis to this.
On Hayom Hazeh. Yeah.
Remember.
Thank you, Jen. Leonard, do you got anything?
I do. So I guess there's disagreement on this, but it does say
shocking
that Zachar to remember and Zachar meaning male may be related to each other. According to some scholars, I'm having a hard time reading here. According to some scholars, the original meaning of the base Zachar, meaning to remember, would have been to prick or pierce, whence to fix in one's mind to remember.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I'll leave that right there. But my sister, the Moheled, would like that commentary. Okay, that brings us to 9:30, and well done, folks. We read a comment of Rashi today. We got through an entire 5-word comment of Rashi. 6 words. That's very impressive. Thank you. So as I said in the WhatsApp group, I will teach next week. I will know more by next week if I need to. It would be very sad, pull back again to create some time in the calendar to get ready for Yontif, because as you know, I normally do during Elul, but this is very nourishing for me, and it's really great to see you all. But read the WhatsApp notes. Jen, are you in the WhatsApp group? Okay, good. Has Rabbi Schatz been making comments in this WhatsApp group for her class? Just be in touch with Rabbi Schatz, and she can give you the WhatsApp group list for this one. All right, have a good day, everybody. Bye, everyone on Zoom. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Live streamers.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.